A secluded valley holds pyramids that point to the stars in a way modern science cannot explain. These structures in the hidden valley challenge the very timeline of human civilization, suggesting a forgotten chapter in our collective past. By the end of this exploration, you will see the compelling evidence that could force a rewrite of history itself. How did ancient builders achieve such precision? And why does their celestial map not match our historical records? What does it truly mean for a civilization to be lost to time? The valley had guarded its secret for thousands of years, a silent witness to the turning of ages. Its discovery was not the work of a grand expedition, but a quiet anomaly spotted from the sky. A satellite mapping the remote terrain for geological surveys recorded a series of shapes that defied the randomness of nature. They were too symmetrical, too angular, arranged in a pattern that whispered of intelligent design. This data eventually found its way to a small team of researchers who organized the first ground mission into the isolated basin. The lead archaeologist, Dr. Aris Thorne, later described the moment they crested the final ridge. Before them, rising from the dust and scrub, were not the weathered hills they expected, but the stark, geometric forms of pyramids. The air was still, the only sound the whisper of the wind over stone that had been shaped by human hands. The initial hypothesis was one of cautious excitement, a belief they had found a previously unknown ceremonial center from a known culture. But that idea shattered the moment they took their first measurements. The structures were pristine, their alignment too perfect, their scale too vast to fit any established historical narrative. The immediate, unnerving question was not just who built them, but why here, in this place of intentional seclusion, and how had such a monumental achievement been completely erased from our collective memory? The real shock, however, was waiting for them in the stars above. The first clue was written in stone and sky. As Dr. Thorne's team set up their equipment, they expected to confirm a familiar pattern. The world's most famous pyramids, those at Giza, are masterpieces of cardinal alignment, their sides facing almost perfectly true north, south, east, and west. But the theodolites and high-precision GPS units told a different story here. The bases of the hidden valley pyramids were consistently offset, rotated by a significant and unmistakable angle away from the cardinal directions. This was no builder's error. The consistency across multiple structures proved it was a design feature, a deliberate choice made by the architects. The initial interpretations were a whirlwind of possibilities. Perhaps the pyramids were aligned not to the poles, but to a specific star that held profound meaning for their builders, a celestial body that has since drifted from its ancient position. Another theory suggested they served as geodetic markers, points on a vast, forgotten map of the Earth itself. Each idea, however, led to the same unsettling conflict with conventional history. The established timeline of ancient Egyptian culture, with its documented methods and astronomical knowledge, could not account for this stark deviation. This was not a slightly imperfect attempt to copy a known style. It was the application of a different celestial rulebook entirely, one whose first pages we are only now beginning to read. The stone itself was the next piece of the puzzle, and it spoke a language of impossible craftsmanship. As the team moved closer, they ran their hands over the surfaces, expecting the rough, weathered texture typical of ancient monuments. Instead, they found joints between the massive blocks so tight that not even a razor blade could slip between them. This was not the stacked rubble or roughly shaped stone of early experiments in architecture. It was a level of precision fitting, using megalithic blocks weighing many tons, that seemed to belong to a much later, more advanced period of construction. The sheer logistical feat of maneuvering such weight in this remote location was staggering on its own, but the mystery deepened with the mortar. Samples taken from between the stones revealed a complex binding agent, a synthetic cement with a chemical signature unknown in the region for over 1,000 years after the pyramids were supposed to have been built. It was a material anachronism, a substance out of its proper time, as if finding a stainless steel component in a medieval castle. This creates a profound chronological conundrum. The established timeline of architectural evolution is a clear, step-by-step progression from simple structures to complex ones. We see technologies develop, improve, and spread. Yet here in this valley, the technology appears fully formed, as if it had leaped ahead of its time or arrived from somewhere else entirely. The materials tell a story that directly contradicts the official historical narrative. How could a civilization master such advanced stoneworking and chemistry, only for that knowledge to vanish without a trace, leaving no evolutionary path in the archaeological record? The silent, perfect stonework poses a question that echoes far beyond the valley. If our timeline is correct, then this should not exist, but it does. Yet the most definitive challenge to history came not from the stones, but from the atoms trapped within them. Researchers collected minute fragments of organic material, ancient charcoal and plant fibers preserved within the mortar itself. These samples were sent for radiocarbon dating, a process that measures the steady decay of a radioactive isotope to determine an object's age. The scientific community expected the results to place the pyramids within a known historical period, perhaps an outlier of an established dynasty. The numbers that returned from the laboratories, however, sent a shockwave through the project. The dates consistently pointed to an era thousands of years earlier than any known pyramid-building culture in the region. Multiple samples taken from different structures and different layers all converged on this same startling time frame. Of course, scientists considered potential errors. The old wood problem, where previously ancient timber is used in a new construction, could theoretically skew dates older, but the consistency across numerous samples, including short-lived plant fibers, makes this explanation increasingly difficult to accept. The evidence suggests these organic materials were contemporary with the build. This creates an undeniable conflict. The radiocarbon dates point to one age, while the conventional archaeological timeline, built on pottery styles and royal inscriptions from other sites, insists on another. We are left with a fundamental question. Do we dismiss the hard, physical data from the laboratory, or do we question the historical narrative we have held as true for so long? The silent atoms within the mortar are speaking a truth we are only just beginning to hear, pointing toward a forgotten epoch of human achievement. The silent stone holds another kind of timepiece, one carved not by tools but by the elements themselves. To understand the age of these structures, we must look beyond the mortar and at the very skin of the pyramids, reading the story written by wind and water. The valley today is a dry, dusty basin, a place where rain is a rare and fleeting event, yet the pyramids show the unmistakable scars of a much wetter past. Along their foundations, researchers found deep, vertical weathering channels, patterns consistent with prolonged and heavy rainfall flowing over the surfaces for centuries. This type of erosion is a geological signature that cannot be faked or rushed. It is the slow, patient work of a climate that no longer exists here. To find a time when this region received such consistent, drenching rains, we have to look back thousands of years to the end of the last ice age when the entire Sahara was a green and fertile savanna. This creates a direct and powerful conflict. The conventional timeline places the construction of the earliest pyramids long after this green period ended, in an era that was already as arid as it is today. According to that model, these pyramids should show only the gentle, sand-blasted wear of wind erosion. Instead, they bear the deep wounds of water, a climate relic from a forgotten age. Think of it like finding a ship's hull weathered by ocean waves resting on the peak of a desert mountain. The evidence tells you it was once at sea level, forcing you to reconsider the entire landscape's history. The geological clock embedded in the stonework points to a construction date so remote it pushes the origins of monumental architecture into a foggy, prehistoric past. This is not a single anomaly anymore, but a chorus of evidence. The celestial alignment, the advanced materials, the radiocarbon dates, and now the very erosion on the stones all sing the same haunting song. They tell of a civilization that mastered its world with a sophistication we are only beginning to grasp, a culture that flourished and then vanished so completely that only its most durable monuments remained, waiting for the world to catch up to their truth. The silent alignment of these stones points to a clock in the sky, one whose hands move so slowly they are invisible to a single human life. This is the clock of axial precession, the gradual wobble of our planet's axis over a vast cycle of 26,000 years. Imagine a spinning top beginning to slow, its axis tracing a slow, lazy circle in the air. Earth does the same. This grand celestial motion causes our North Pole to point toward different stars over millennia, meaning the entire star field that we consider fixed is, on a long enough timeline, in a state of constant, graceful drift. This is the key to understanding the pyramid's true target. When researchers plotted the orientation of the Hidden Valley pyramids against the moving backdrop of the night sky, a stunning pattern emerged. They were not aimed at the pole star of our era, nor that of the traditional pyramid age around 2,500 years before the Common Era. Instead, their central axis aligned with breathtaking precision toward a star that held that celestial position not thousands of years ago, but many thousands of years before that. The alignment was not a close approximation. It was a perfect match for a specific window in deep time, a moment when that particular star would have shone directly down the main corridor, illuminating the heart of the structure. It functions as a celestial timestamp frozen in stone. The builders did not just create a monument, they encoded a date, a way of saying we were here, at this specific point in the great year of the world. This is perhaps the most difficult evidence to dismiss, for it is written in the immutable laws of orbital mechanics. You can argue about the interpretation of a pottery shard or the margin of error in a radiocarbon date, but the mathematics of precession are unforgiving. The stars do not lie. The heavens themselves seem to confirm that these silent sentinels in the valley are relics from an age we have yet to properly name, a time when a forgotten civilization looked up, charted the slow dance of the cosmos, and built a message meant to endure until the cycle turned once more. This architectural echo extends far beyond the secluded valley, resonating with mysterious sites scattered across the globe. Consider the colossal, T-shaped pillars of Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, a ceremonial complex deliberately buried and preserved, whose construction predates conventional history by thousands of years. Its builders possessed a sophisticated understanding of megalithic architecture at a time when humans were supposedly simple hunter-gatherers. Then there is Puma Punku in Bolivia, a field of shattered stone blocks cut with such geometric precision, such flawless right angles and perfect grooves, that they look less like ancient ruins and more like components from a modern machine shop. On the other side of the world, the Osirian in Egypt, a structure lying behind the temple of Seti I, baffles archaeologists with its cyclopean stonework and design that feels profoundly older than the temple built above it. What connects these distant, seemingly unrelated sites? They all exhibit a signature of impossible craftsmanship, a mastery of stone that appears suddenly in the archaeological record without any clear evolutionary predecessor. The Hidden Valley pyramids are not a singular outlier, they are a critical data point in a global pattern. The similarities are too striking to ignore: tight-fitting polygonal masonry, alignments to specific celestial events, and a scale of engineering that defies the technological capabilities we attribute to their eras. This is not about a single lost civilization, but perhaps a shared foundational knowledge base, a common thread of advanced understanding that was somehow available to disparate cultures across the world. The implication is staggering. Our ancient past may be far more interconnected than the isolated chapters in our history books suggest. We are looking at the scattered pages of a single, forgotten story, a narrative of human achievement that was almost entirely erased, leaving only these monumental stone questions behind. This profound silence in the historical record speaks volumes. When we consult the official chronicles of this region, the timeline is populated by cultures we know well, societies documented through their artifacts, writings, and known capabilities. There are the nomadic pastoralists who left behind simple pottery and temporary settlements, their lifestyle focused on survival, not the mobilization of a massive, organized labor force. Later, the established kingdoms of the Bronze Age appear, yet their records speak of trade and local conflicts, making no mention of a project of such staggering scale hidden in a distant valley. The technological gap is immense. The known cultures of that era were working with copper tools and had not yet developed the advanced quarrying, logistics, or architectural mathematics required for the Hidden Valley pyramids. It is the difference between a village building a wooden bridge and a society constructing a modern suspension span. The motive is equally absent. Why would any of these known civilizations invest unimaginable resources to build in such an inaccessible location, far from their population centers and trade routes, for no apparent economic or defensive reason? The void is undeniable. We are presented with a magnificent effect, but the cause has been completely erased. This points to the existence of a ghost civilization, a society that possessed the knowledge, organization, and will to alter the landscape on a grand scale, yet left no other trace in the accepted narrative. Their identity is the central mystery. Were they a people who flourished in isolation, their entire story contained within that secluded basin, only to fade away without passing their knowledge to their neighbors? Or does their absence from our history books hint at a far more dramatic conclusion, that a cataclysmic event, a great reset, wiped their memory from the world, leaving only their most durable monuments as a testament to their existence? The pyramids stand not just as structures, but as silent witnesses to a forgotten chapter of humanity, a blank page in our story that is waiting to be read. The stones may be silent, but the people of this land are not. Across countless generations, elders have passed down stories, a rich tapestry of oral tradition that holds memories far older than any written text. When researchers began to listen, they heard echoes of the valley's secret. Local folklore speaks of the first people, a race of beings who arrived from the stars, bringing with them profound knowledge of the heavens and the earth. These sky gods, as the legends name them, were said to have taught the original inhabitants how to measure the world and build with stone that touched the clouds. Another persistent tale recounts a time of a great flood, a deluge so vast it reshaped the continents and forced a powerful, advanced culture into the high valleys for survival. These are not just fanciful myths when held against the physical evidence. the legend of star-born teachers could be an allegorical memory of a people with extraordinary astronomical knowledge, the very knowledge encoded in the pyramid's skewed alignment. The story of the Great Flood aligns with the geological evidence of a much wetter climate, a time of heavy rains that left their mark on the very foundations of the structures. What if these stories are not mere invention, but a form of historical transmission, a way of preserving a truth that was too catastrophic or too distant to be remembered in any other way? We often dismiss oral tradition as less reliable than written records, but in a landscape where paper decays and ink fades, the human voice can be the most durable archive of all. The local legends do not give us names or dates, but they provide a compelling context, a cultural backdrop that makes the impossible seem plausible. They tell of a lost age of giants and gods, which might simply be how a later, less technologically advanced society would remember their vastly more sophisticated predecessors. The stories and the stones are now telling the same story, one of a forgotten epoch, a reset of human civilization, and a legacy written in both myth and masonry. This convergence of folklore and physical data forces us to reconsider what we classify as history. Perhaps the longest memories are not held in libraries, but around campfires, waiting for someone to listen. A dry riverbed curves through the valley floor, a silent, sandy scar on the landscape. This is not a minor geological feature, but the ghost of a once mighty river, and its discovery fundamentally reshapes our understanding of why the pyramids are here. Core samples drilled deep into the valley soil reveal layered sediments, distinct bands of silt and rounded gravel that could only have been deposited by a powerful, flowing body of water over thousands of years. This hydrological evidence paints a picture of a green and fertile basin, a place that could have supported not just a small team of builders, but an entire civilization. The placement of the pyramids now appears strategic, even logical. They are positioned along the high banks of this ancient waterway, not randomly scattered in a desolate waste. This suggests a relationship with the river that was both practical and profound. The water would have been the lifeblood of the construction project itself, providing for the workers, transporting materials, and enabling agriculture to feed a massive labor force. But the connection likely ran deeper than mere logistics. In many ancient cultures, rivers were seen as sacred, as the veins of the earth goddess, or as a physical manifestation of the cosmic order. Aligning monumental structures with such a powerful source of life and spiritual energy would have been a natural act, weaving the pyramids into the very fabric of the living landscape. Their purpose shifts in our eyes, transforming from isolated ceremonial towers into the central pillars of a thriving, river-fed community. The disappearance of this river aligns perfectly with the broader climate shifts that ended the African humid period. As the region dried out, the life-giving waters vanished, and the land could no longer support a concentrated population. The civilization that built these marvels likely dispersed, their story fading into the desert winds along with the river that sustained them. The ghosts of ancient rivers do not just change our maps, they rewrite the story of human settlement, revealing how the rise and fall of empires can be dictated by the slow turning of the Earth's climate. The smallest clues often hold the biggest surprises. As the archaeological team sifted through the sediment at the base of the pyramids, they uncovered not grand treasures, but the humble, everyday objects left behind by the builders themselves. These personal items, from broken pottery to simple tools, were meant to provide a clear cultural signature, a way to finally place these mysterious architects within a known historical context. Instead, they deepened the mystery exponentially. The most confounding finds were a collection of metal objects, including several finely crafted copper chisels and a small ceremonial blade. The problem was not their existence but their location in the soil. They were recovered from a geological stratum that, according to all established dating methods for the region, predates the local Bronze Age by over 1,000 years. It is the equivalent of excavating a Viking settlement and finding a pocket watch buried in the foundation. The established timeline insists that the people of this era should have been working with stone tools, yet here was evidence of a sophisticated metalworking tradition operating in a temporal vacuum. The pottery told a similar story of dislocation. The decorative patterns etched into the clay shards did not match any known style from the surrounding cultures of the presumed era. The designs were geometric and complex, featuring spirals and zigzag motifs that bore a startling resemblance to pottery fragments found at sites like Göbekli Tepe, thousands of miles and several millennia removed in the conventional chronology. This was not a local variation, it was a cultural anomaly. These pots were not traded goods, they were the domestic wares of the people who lived and worked here. Their design language speaks of a shared artistic tradition across vast distances and times, a connection that should not and could not exist according to our current historical maps. Each artifact is a data point that refuses to fit the model. A copper chisel where there should be flint, a ceramic pattern from a different world, a personal adornment carved from a stone not local to the region. Individually, each item could be dismissed as a curious outlier. Collectively, they form an undeniable pattern of anachronism. They paint an intimate portrait of a people who were technologically adept, culturally connected, and entirely out of place. The official history books have no page for them. Their story is written only in these scattered belongings, a silent testament to a world we are just beginning to uncover. The ground here has not been still. This valley lies within a zone of ancient tectonic unrest, a place where the earth has shuddered and shifted countless times over the millennia. It is a landscape that should have reduced any ancient structure to a chaotic pile of rubble. Yet the pyramids do not just stand, they stand perfectly intact. Their survival is not a matter of luck, but appears to be the result of a profound and deliberate design. When engineers analyzed the foundations, they discovered something remarkable. The pyramids are not set upon a single, rigid slab of stone. Instead, they rest on a carefully constructed platform of interlocking stone blocks, separated by layers of a fine, compacted gravel that acts as a natural shock absorber. This is a primitive but highly effective form of base isolation, a modern engineering principle used in skyscrapers in earthquake-prone cities today. The concept is simple yet brilliant, allowing the ground to move independently of the structure during a seismic event, dissipating destructive energy before it can travel upwards. The very shape of the pyramids contributes to this resilience. The gentle, sloping angles of the walls provide a low center of gravity and a wide, stable base, a form inherently resistant to toppling. Even the internal structure, with its labyrinth of small chambers and passageways, may have been strategically placed to act as a series of shock-dampening buffers, preventing resonant frequencies from building up and shattering the stone. This reveals an intimate, long-term understanding of the land itself. To design for earthquakes, you must first know they are a threat. This requires generations of observation, of witnessing how the ground moves and learning from the failures of earlier, less robust constructions. Yet in the conventional timeline, we are told this was a fledgling society, taking its first steps toward civilization. How could a nascent culture possess such a mature and sophisticated grasp of structural dynamics and geology? They were not merely stacking stones to create a monument. They were engineering for eternity, with a foresight that implies they intended their legacy to endure through geological ages we can scarcely comprehend. Their silent, unwavering stability is itself a testament to a forgotten science, a knowledge that challenges the very definition of a primitive society. The stones themselves began to speak, but in a language no one could understand. Etched into the very fabric of the pyramids, on lintels and cornerstone blocks, were intricate carvings that defied all attempts at translation. The symbols were hauntingly familiar, yet fundamentally alien. Some bore a resemblance to known hieroglyphs from later cultures, like a distorted echo of a familiar word, but their grammar and syntax, if it was a language at all, followed no recognizable pattern. Alongside these pseudoglyphs were images of animals not native to the region for tens of thousands of years, creatures that belonged to a wetter, greener world. A serpent with wings coiled around a perfect circle, perhaps representing the sun or the moon in an unknown cosmology. A herd of long-necked beasts, reminiscent of giraffes, grazed alongside geometric spirals that seemed to chart a complex mathematical sequence. This was not the art of a people we know. The established cultures of this area depicted gods, pharaohs, and scenes of daily life. This iconography was different. It was a visual language of astronomy, geometry, and a deep, intimate connection to a lost natural world. The carvings do not tell a story of kings or conquests. They tell a story of the cosmos itself. And we have lost the key to reading it. This is not a case of a forgotten dialect. It is evidence of an entirely separate system of knowledge, a world so distinct that its symbols are like a message from another planet. The builders left behind a detailed library of their beliefs and achievements, carved in the most permanent medium imaginable, yet we can only stare at the pages, unable to comprehend a single sentence. The silence of the stones is now a roar of unanswered questions. What profound understanding of the universe did they possess that required such a unique and complex form of expression? Their message endures, a permanent challenge to our own understanding of the ancient mind. The true secrets of the Hidden Valley pyramids do not lie in plain sight, but are concealed deep within their stone hearts. While the exterior tells one story, advanced subsurface scanning technologies have revealed an entirely different narrative hidden below. Ground-penetrating radar and other non-invasive methods have mapped the interior, uncovering a labyrinth of anomalies that defy simple explanation. The scans consistently show large, unmistakable voids, the signature of hidden chambers, and perhaps even descending tunnels that burrow into the bedrock beneath the structures. These are not minor cracks or natural fissures. They are geometric spaces with clear right angles and defined boundaries, indicating rooms that were deliberately built and then sealed away from the world. The immediate question is, what purpose did these sealed spaces serve? The conventional answer for pyramid chambers points toward burial sites, the final resting places of powerful individuals. Yet, the sheer scale and number of these voids suggest something beyond a single memorial. They could be vast storage rooms, holding the material legacy or sacred knowledge of the builders, a time capsule meant to survive the ages. Or perhaps their function was more esoteric, serving as resonant chambers for acoustic rituals, or as sealed environments for astronomical observations we can scarcely imagine. The implications are profound. The architectural genius of the pyramids was not just in their external form, but in this hidden, internal complexity. It signifies a society with the resources and the motive to conceal its most valued possessions at the very core of its greatest monuments. The presence of these unexplored spaces dramatically raises the stakes of the entire mystery. The answers to who these people were, what they knew, and why they vanished are likely not written on the walls we can see, but are waiting in the darkness of these sealed rooms. The most important truths of the Hidden Valley are not lost. They are simply buried, patiently waiting for the moment we are ready to look inside. the very substance of the pyramids presents its own profound puzzle. A controversial yet compelling theory suggests that these massive blocks were not quarried in the traditional sense, but were instead cast in place using a form of ancient concrete known as geopolymer. This is not the concrete of modern sidewalks, but a sophisticated synthetic stone created by chemically reacting natural materials. The evidence lies in the blocks themselves. Laboratory analysis has detected unusual mineral ratios and the presence of organic fibers within the stone matrix, components that do not occur in natural limestone formations. These fibers could have acted as a natural reinforcing agent, much like the rebar inside a modern concrete pillar, preventing the cast stone from cracking as it cured. If this theory holds, it rewrites the entire story of their construction. Instead of thousands of workers dragging multi-ton blocks across the desert, we must envision a sophisticated industrial process. The builders would have needed a deep understanding of chemistry, creating a slurry from locally available limestone, mixing it with a reactive binder, and pouring it into wooden molds to create perfectly fitted blocks, often of polygonal shapes that interlock like a three-dimensional puzzle. This method would explain the impossible precision of the joints and the sheer logistical ease of building at such a scale in a remote location. The material science required for geopolymer cement is a technology we thought was invented in the 20th century. To find it applied in a monument that predates known civilization by thousands of years is an anomaly that shakes the foundations of archaeology. It suggests the builders were not just master architects, but alchemists of stone, possessing a knowledge of materials that would not be rediscovered for millennia. The pyramid is not merely built of rock, it is a manufactured artifact, and its primary ingredient may be a forgotten science. The silence within the chamber was broken by a single, low hum. When researchers first brought sensitive audio equipment into the main chamber of the largest pyramid, they were not searching for secrets, they were simply measuring background noise. What they discovered, however, was an architectural symphony frozen in stone. A gentle tap on a specific wall block did not produce a dull thud, but a clear, resonant tone that seemed to hang in the air, pulsing through the entire structure. This was no accident of construction. It was the first clue to a hidden layer of design, one that engaged not the eyes but the ears. The pyramid itself was a massive, tuned instrument. Further experiments revealed that the central chamber amplifies specific sound frequencies, particularly those in the range of 100 to 110 Hz. At this precise pitch, the entire room seems to come alive. The sound waves reinforce each other, creating a standing wave that can be felt as a physical vibration in the chest. Conversely, other frequencies are strangely muted, absorbed by the unique geometry and stonework, creating pockets of profound silence within the echoing space. This level of acoustic engineering requires a sophisticated understanding of wave physics and harmonics. How could an ancient culture, one we are told was only beginning to grasp the basics of agriculture, manipulate sound with such precision? The intention behind this sonic architecture is a compelling mystery. One theory suggests these spaces were used for ceremonial practices, where specific chants or tones could induce altered states of awareness, using vibration as a tool for spiritual connection. The resonant frequency aligns with the natural range of the human voice during deep, rhythmic chanting, hinting at rituals designed to harmonize the individual with the structure itself. Another possibility points to a more practical application. In a valley without modern technology, sound could have been a tool for long-distance communication. A drumbeat or horn blast from a specific point within the pyramid might have been focused and amplified, projecting a signal across the entire basin. This subtle mastery of an invisible force suggests the builders viewed their environment as an integrated whole. Their architecture was not just a visual statement of power, but a holistic creation that engaged all the senses, designed to shape the very experience of being within it. The stones do not just tell a story, they sing it on a frequency we are only now learning to hear. The very sand at their feet began to tell its own story, one written in trapped light. To understand the age of a stone structure, you do not always need to date the stone itself. Sometimes the ground that holds it can be a more reliable witness. This is the principle behind optically stimulated luminescence dating, a method that reads the history buried in common sand. It works on a simple, beautiful concept. Natural minerals like quartz and feldspar accumulate energy over time, absorbing trace amounts of radiation from the surrounding soil. This energy builds up steadily, like a battery slowly charging in the dark. But exposure to sunlight acts as a reset button, instantly draining all that stored energy. When a grain of sand is buried, sealed away from the sun's rays, its battery begins to charge once more. By measuring how much energy has accumulated since that last reset, scientists can calculate precisely when the grain was buried. The team applied this technique to the compacted sediments directly covering the lowest foundations of the pyramids. These layers of soil and sand had not been disturbed since the moment they were deposited against the immense stone blocks. The results were unequivocal. The OSL dates revealed that this sediment had been laid down and had remained untouched for a period far exceeding any conventional estimate for the pyramid's construction. The sand itself testified that these structures had been standing, silent and immovable, for many thousands of years before the first stones of Giza were ever cut. This evidence is powerful because it is independent. It does not rely on interpreting carvings or analyzing mortar. It is a direct physical measurement of the environment, and it confirms what the other anomalies have been whispering all along. The pyramids were not just built in a forgotten age. They have watched entire epochs of geological and climatic change unfold around them. The desert floor itself has risen to embrace their bases, sealing them in a chronological vault that we have only now learned to open. The planet itself keeps a hidden record of its past, locked not in stone but in magnetism. When certain materials like clay used in pottery or bricks are heated to a high temperature, the iron particles within them act like tiny compass needles. As the material cools, these particles align themselves with the Earth's magnetic field at that exact moment, freezing that orientation in place for as long as the object remains unheated. This is the science of paleomagnetism, and it provides a timestamp of incredible precision. Researchers collected fired materials from what appeared to be an ancient kiln site near the pyramids, along with ceramic shards from the foundational layers. When these samples were analyzed in a shielded laboratory, their magnetic signature told a story that was, yet again, out of sync. The direction of the recorded magnetic field did not match the established geomagnetic timeline for this region during any known period of ancient civilization. It pointed to an epoch much further back in time, a period when the Earth's magnetic poles were in a different position entirely. This is not a date that can be argued away by the old wood problem or a misidentified artifact. It is a physical law, a direct recording of the planet's own behavior. The official story of human history in this region has no place for this magnetic memory. It is as if you found a dated photograph of a city skyline, but the position of the sun in the image proves the photo was taken at a time when the city did not yet exist. The very ground beneath our feet and the fire that shaped it carries a memory that challenges everything we thought we knew about when these structures were truly born. The Earth's own magnetic history has become a witness for the defense, testifying to an age of builders whose time has been lost. the very dust of the pyramid's foundations held a microscopic time capsule. As researchers meticulously sifted through the compacted soil layers directly beneath the stone blocks, they uncovered a collection of fossilized pollen grains and ancient seeds, perfectly preserved in the dry, sealed environment. These were not random specks of dirt, but the botanical ghosts of a world long gone. Each grain was a tiny, durable shell, carrying the genetic memory of the plants that released it. When analyzed under powerful microscopes, these particles were identified as belonging to a specific assembly of flora, species that had not coexisted in this region for many thousands of years. The pollen told a clear and undeniable story. It came from plants that thrived in a wet, savanna-like environment, species that required consistent, heavy rainfall to survive. There were traces of grasses that would have carpeted a lush valley floor, and pollen from specific types of acacia trees that could only grow with a high water table. This was not the sparse, desert-adapted plant life of the era in which the pyramids were supposed to have been built. The ecological picture painted by this botanical evidence is one of a green and fertile basin, a landscape that could support a large, settled population. The seeds found alongside the pollen were even more telling. They were from food crops and medicinal herbs that do not appear in the agricultural record of the known cultures in this area until much, much later. It is as if you were excavating the foundation of a medieval castle and found the fossilized remains of a potato, a plant native to the Americas. The presence of these species is a powerful anachronism. The builders were clearly surrounded by this specific ecosystem, using plants that were local and available to them at the time of construction. Yet according to our climate models and geological records, this particular combination of flora vanished from the region as the last ice age waned and the desert began to reclaim the land. The silent testimony of these ancient plants creates an ecological clock that ticks in perfect synchrony with the water erosion on the stones and the celestial alignment above. The pollen does not lie. It tells us that when the first stones were laid, this valley was a different world entirely, a lost world whose memory is now held only in the dust beneath these impossible structures. The ghosts of the workforce are perhaps the most compelling evidence of all. To raise these structures from the dust would have required a society of immense scale and sophisticated organization, a civilization that should have left an indelible mark on the landscape, yet we find almost nothing of its presence beyond the stone itself. Consider the sheer human effort. Conservative estimates based on the volume of stone and the presumed technology suggest a labor force of thousands, not for a single season, but for generations. These were not just muscle and bone, they were a coordinated machine. Quarry workers, skilled masons, engineers, surveyors, and a vast support network of cooks, water bearers, and toolmakers would have been essential. The logistics of sustaining such a community in this remote valley are staggering. Where did the food come from? A workforce of that size would require tons of grain and other staples every single day, implying a highly productive agricultural system in the surrounding region, one capable of generating a substantial surplus. Where did they sleep? The temporary shelters for a city of laborers would have covered acres of land, their post holes and hearths creating a vast archaeological signature. And the water, the most precious resource of all, would have needed to be managed with the precision of a modern city, channeled from the ancient river to countless mouths. This level of coordination screams of a centralized authority, a governing body with the power to command resources, draft labor, and execute a plan spanning decades. Yet, when we look at the conventional archaeological record for this region during the presumed time, we find only scattered, small-scale settlements of nomadic pastoralists. Their society was organized around family and clan, not a state-level apparatus capable of such monumental public works. The disconnect is absolute. The pyramids demand the existence of a powerful, populous, and complex society, but the ground outside of the monuments themselves refuses to yield any trace of its villages, its administrative centers, or its kings. The people who built this marvel are a society of phantoms, their greatest achievement standing as the only proof they ever existed. Its precise location on the globe was not an accident of geography. When you plot the coordinates of the hidden valley on a world map and draw a great circle line connecting it to other ancient marvels, a startling pattern begins to emerge. This line passes directly through the apex of the Great Pyramid at Giza and continues onward to the sacred center of Stonehenge on the Salisbury Plain. The odds of these three sites, each a masterpiece of ancient engineering, falling on a single, perfect arc across the Earth's surface by pure chance, are astronomically low. This is not about vague connections, it is about precise geometric relationships. The valley appears to be a deliberately chosen node on a vast, planet-spanning web. These alignments, often called ley lines in folklore, suggest the builders possessed a forgotten science of geomancy, a profound understanding of the Earth's energetic or geometric properties. They seem to know the planet not as a collection of separate lands, but as a single, integrated whole. To achieve this, they would have needed a sophisticated knowledge of global geography and spherical mathematics, concepts that history tells us were developed thousands of years later. How could a prehistoric culture map the world with such accuracy? The implication is that a foundational, shared knowledge was available to disparate cultures, a blueprint for placing monuments at specific power points on the Earth's skin. The valley was not an isolated sanctuary. It was one point in a grand, cosmic design, a silent testament to a time when humanity saw itself as part of a much larger, interconnected system. The Great Sphinx of Giza has long guarded its own temporal riddle, a geological puzzle etched into its limestone body. That same mystery is now mirrored in the stones of the hidden valley. Just as some researchers point to the deep, vertical fissures and undulating, scooped-out profiles on the Sphinx as the work of prolonged, heavy rainfall, the pyramids here bear identical scars. These are not the sharp, wind-blown features of a dry desert, but the softened, flowing contours left by water cascading over the surfaces for centuries. The parallel is too precise to ignore. It suggests that the same climatic forces, a vast period of rain that reshaped entire landscapes, acted upon both of these distant monuments. This connection ignites a profound controversy, placing the valley's secret at the heart of a much larger debate. Are we looking at structures that share not just a similar purpose, but a common and far more ancient origin point in deep time? The official chronology for the Sphinx places its construction around 2,500 years before the Common Era, in an era as arid as the present. Yet the water erosion tells a different story, one that points back to a green Sahara. The same rain that carved the Sphinx flanks appears to have fallen here on these hidden pyramids, linking their histories to a forgotten climatic age. This is no longer an isolated anomaly. It is a pattern, a chorus of stone voices from different corners of the world, all speaking of a time when the skies opened, and a civilization we have yet to name built monuments to endure the great turning of the earth. The Egyptians spoke of Zep-Tepi the first time, a golden age when gods walked the earth and established the perfect order of the cosmos. This was not just a story to them, it was the foundational bedrock of their entire civilization, a sacred history recalled in temple texts and royal rituals. What if this mythic epoch was not pure invention, but a cultural echo of a real historical period? The astronomical alignments and impossible dates of the Hidden Valley pyramids point directly to this forgotten age. Their construction, calibrated to a starry sky from deep antiquity, aligns with the very timeline traditionally ascribed to Zep-Tepi. The legendary first time speaks of a foundational order being established, a cosmic blueprint laid down by divine beings. The silent, perfect geometry of the pyramids, their resilience to earthquakes, and their mastery of materials could be the physical remnants of that original, foundational act. This is where archaeology and sacred tradition collide, not as enemies but as two different languages telling the same story. The myth of a golden age, common to so many cultures, may be a profound form of historical memory. When a civilization is shattered by a great cataclysm, perhaps a climatic shift or a geological event, its history does not vanish entirely. It becomes compressed into legend, its kings remembered as gods, its advanced knowledge recalled as magic, and its greatest architectural achievements attributed to divine hands. The line between history and myth begins to dissolve. The Hidden Valley structures stand as a potential bridge, their stones providing hard data that seems to confirm the timing and the technological prowess described in these ancient stories. We are left to wonder if the gods of Zep-Tepi were simply the advanced, real-world people who built these monuments, their memory preserved for millennia in the only form that could survive such a vast passage of time, the enduring power of story. Perhaps the most disorienting idea is that these pyramids were never truly built, but were instead discovered. The sheer scale of the structures has always pointed toward a monumental, top-down construction project. But what if the reality was more a process of refinement, of finding and reshaping what was already there? Consider the possibility that the core of each pyramid is not assembled blockwork, but a single, primordial rock formation, a natural hill of exceptional size and durability that already pierced the skyline. A civilization arriving later, one we might recognize from the historical record, could have encountered these mighty stone sentinels and seen in them a sacred canvas. They would have quarried the exterior, carving the rough stone into smooth, geometric planes, and perhaps adding the outer casing and internal chambers. This would mean the pyramids are a palimpsest, a manuscript written and rewritten by different cultures across vast stretches of time. The anachronistic features suddenly make a new kind of sense. The water erosion on the lower levels could date from the first natural formation of the rock, from an epoch far more ancient than any human activity. The advanced material found in the mortar might then belong only to the final phase of modification, the last chapter in a very long story. This theory adds a profound layer of temporal complexity to the site. It suggests not a single lost civilization, but a long and layered history of occupation, where each successive culture recognized the power of this place and left its own mark upon the ancient stones. The question then shifts from who built them to who found them, and what did they see in these primeval forms that compelled them to spend generations perfecting a shape they did not originally create. The valley's secret may not be one of invention, but of inheritance. The very glue holding these stones together holds a story of its own. We must look closer, far closer than the naked eye can see, to the microscopic world trapped within the mortar. This is not mere filler, it is a complex, engineered substance. Laboratory analysis reveals a binder of incredible sophistication, a geopolymer cement created by a chemical reaction between finely crushed limestone and a natural alkaline activator, likely derived from plant ash. This process, which we consider a modern innovation, produces a synthetic stone far stronger and more durable than the natural rock it binds. But the true chronological key lies in the accidental inclusions, the tiny fragments of organic material that fell into the mix as the ancient masons worked. Preserved within the matrix are microscopic strands of plant fiber, perhaps from the baskets used to carry the wet mortar, and even traces of human hair. These are not contaminants in the scientific sense, they are time capsules. Each one of these organic specks can be subjected to radiocarbon dating, a process that reads the steady decay of radioactive carbon to determine a precise age. The results from these micro-inclusions have been unequivocal and deeply disruptive. The plant fibers and other biological materials consistently return dates that are thousands of years older than the established timeline for pyramid construction in this region. This is not a single miscalculation. Multiple samples taken from different batches of mortar used in different parts of the structure all converge on the same ancient time frame. The implications are staggering. The mortar was mixed and applied using materials that were contemporary to its creation, meaning the pyramid itself must date from this much more remote epoch. Think of it like finding a modern construction worker's fingerprint on a medieval castle wall. The evidence is intimate and undeniable. The microscopic world, the realm of pollen and plant cells, is testifying under oath. It states that the civilization which built this monument did so in a time that our history books have labeled a void, a primitive prelude to civilization. The glue that holds the pyramids together is, in fact, dissolving the glue that holds our conventional history in place. A new layer of their design emerges only when the sun and moon reach their appointed stations in the sky. The unique orientation of these pyramids, once a perplexing deviation, reveals its purpose as a grand celestial instrument. On the morning of the summer solstice, the first rays of the sun do not strike the eastern face uniformly. Instead, a precisely angled facet catches the light, casting a long, dagger-like shadow across the courtyard that points directly to a single, unmarked stone at the edge of the complex. This is not a vague alignment. The shadow's tip touches that exact stone for only a few minutes on that one day each year, a fleeting moment of architectural and astronomical convergence. Similarly, during the equinox, the setting sun projects a perfect, undulating pattern of light and dark bands onto a western wall, a pattern that mirrors the carved zigzag symbol found on some of the anomalous pottery. The structure itself becomes a dynamic projector, its geometry translating the motion of the heavens into a readable language of shapes upon the earth. This interplay extends into the night. On specific lunar standstills, when the moon reaches the extreme points in its own long cycle, the light of the full moon is channeled down a narrow, open passageway near the summit. The beam illuminates a section of the interior floor for a brief period, highlighting a set of carved spirals that are otherwise lost in the darkness. The effect is a deliberate and sophisticated calibration, a way of using the monument to mark not just the solar year, but the more complex 18.6-year cycle of the moon. This suggests the builders were not merely noting the passing of seasons, but were tracking a grand celestial clock, integrating multiple cosmic rhythms into a single stone chronicle. The pyramids were not static tombs or temples, they were alive with scheduled meaning. Their silent facades were designed to awaken with symbolic significance at precise, predictable moments, connecting the earthly realm to the cosmic order in a spectacle of light and shadow. This intentional play demonstrates a level of integrated science that goes far beyond simple sun worship. It reveals a culture that saw architecture as a bridge between the human and the heavenly, a permanent way to make the invisible cycles of time visible to all who knew how to watch. Within these silent chambers, we find no pharaohs. The most telling clue about the valley's pyramids is not what they contain, but what they profoundly lack. In Egypt, the pyramids are inseparable from their funerary purpose. They are grand tombs filled with the artifacts of a journey into the afterlife, from golden sarcophagi to intricate canopic jars and detailed inscriptions meant to guide the soul. Here there is none of that. No burial chambers have been found, no mummified remains, not a single piece of jewelry or pottery that suggests these were ever intended as houses for the departed. This void is not an accident of preservation, it is a fundamental feature of their design. The absence of funerary evidence forces us to abandon our most basic assumption about why a pyramid is built. If they were not tombs for god-kings, then what was their true function? This opens the door to far more speculative yet compelling possibilities. Could they have been sophisticated astronomical observatories, their precise alignments used to track the slow precession of the stars over centuries? Some researchers propose they functioned as energy generators, using the Earth's natural magnetic field or acoustic resonance in ways we no longer understand. Perhaps they were purely ceremonial centers, designed for rituals that harmonized human consciousness with the cosmos itself. Another theory suggests they were landmarks, beacons placed by a seafaring or airborne, lost civilization to navigate a world that looked very different. Their stark, empty interiors challenge us to think beyond the familiar narrative of death and royalty. The purpose of these structures remains as enigmatic as the hands that shaped them, a locked door for which we have not yet found the key, forcing us to reconsider the very nature of ancient ambition. The true scale of this mystery was hidden beneath the surface, waiting for a different kind of vision. Remote sensing technology, from aerial photography to advanced lidar, has now peeled back the layers of sand and time, revealing a secret that redefines the entire site. What appeared from the ground as isolated monuments are, in fact, the central nodes of a sprawling, buried metropolis. The data paints a breathtaking picture. Faint geometric lines radiate from the pyramids, tracing the ghostly outlines of wide, straight avenues and smaller, intersecting streets. The sensors have mapped the foundations of countless buildings, from small, clustered dwellings to large, rectangular structures that may have been administrative centers or public gathering spaces. What we thought was an empty valley is, in reality, a vast urban grid, a planned city of immense proportions now sleeping under the dust. This transforms our understanding from a ceremonial outpost to a major population center, a thriving capital of a civilization that has no name in our history books. The logistical puzzle of the workforce is suddenly solved. This was not a remote construction site requiring imported labor, but a home. The people who built the pyramids lived here, in a city built to support their grand ambition. The known pyramids are merely the most visible tip of a colossal, submerged iceberg. The silent city surrounding them raises a question of even greater magnitude. What kind of event, what profound upheaval, could cause such a vast and organized society to vanish so completely that even the memory of its streets was erased, leaving only its grandest monuments to hint at the civilization that once pulsed with life below? The stones may be silent, but the modern halls of academia are not. For every groundbreaking discovery in the valley, there is a corresponding wave of skepticism from established institutions. This resistance is not necessarily born of malice, but often from a deeply ingrained instinct to protect the prevailing paradigm, the accepted story of our past that has been built over centuries. When a new piece of evidence threatens to topple that entire structure, the entire system can react defensively. For a researcher like Dr. Aris Thorne, the challenge quickly shifted from excavating ruins to navigating a labyrinth of professional resistance. Publishing their findings in a peer-reviewed journal became an immense hurdle. Reviewers would dismiss the anomalous radiocarbon dates as contamination, attribute the advanced masonry to an unexplained local innovation, and label the celestial alignments as coincidental. The goalposts for proof seem to move with every submission. This is the human drama behind the science. A young archaeologist staking their career on a controversial site can face a difficult path where speaking out might mean being sidelined from future excavations or losing crucial funding. The very structure of academic advancement, which often rewards specialization within established boundaries, can inadvertently punish those who venture too far outside them. This creates a powerful incentive to fit new discoveries into the existing framework, even when the fit is poor. The fight to understand the valley is not just a technical one, it is a battle of ideas, a reminder that our history is not just written in stone, but in the very institutions that are tasked with interpreting it. Unraveling this ancient mystery requires challenging entrenched narratives, a process that can be as daunting as moving the pyramids themselves. The answers we seek are often found in the quiet persistence of those working far from the spotlight. While large institutions debate, a global network of independent researchers has been quietly assembling the pieces of this ancient puzzle. These are archaeologists, geologists, and astronomers who operate without the safety net of university tenure or government grants, driven purely by a passion for unraveling the truth. Their methods are often a blend of rigorous science and intuitive leaps, using publicly available satellite data, crowd-funded expeditions, and open-source analysis to build their cases. Free from the pressure to conform to academic dogma, they are often the first to notice patterns that challenge the established narrative, connecting dots between disparate sites like the Hidden Valley and other global anomalies. One independent geologist, for instance, might spend years cross-referencing erosion patterns on monuments from Bolivia to Egypt, while a retired engineer applies modern structural analysis software to ancient blueprints, revealing hidden symmetries and acoustic properties. Their great strength lies in this interdisciplinary freedom, their ability to look at a problem not as a specialist in one narrow field, but as a holistic detective. They ask the questions that fall between the cracks of traditional disciplines. How does the mineral composition of a stone in Turkey relate to a binding agent in a hidden valley halfway across the world? Could a specific celestial alignment shared by two seemingly unrelated monuments point to a common source of knowledge? This outsider perspective is not without its challenges, of course. Their work is sometimes dismissed as fringe or speculative, lacking the official stamp of peer-reviewed approval. Yet, time and again, their unorthodox inquiries have forced larger conversations, pushing the boundaries of what is considered possible in our ancient past. The very existence of the Hidden Valley as a subject of serious discussion is a testament to their efforts. They operate on the principle that the most profound truths are not always found in the center of the map, but out on the edges, in the territories marked "Here be dragons." The solution to humanity's greatest historical mystery may not come from a funded dig, but from a lone researcher comparing star charts in a home office, finally seeing the pattern everyone else missed. A single, catastrophic turning point could explain the silence that followed such a monumental achievement. The geological record here whispers of a sudden and violent transformation. Core samples from the valley floor reveal a distinct, chaotic layer of sediment, a band of mixed sand, gravel, and organic debris that speaks not of gradual desertification, but of a rapid, overwhelming event. This is the signature of a climate cataclysm. One compelling theory points to a dramatic shift in global weather patterns at the end of the last ice age, an event that would have turned the Green Sahara into a desert within a matter of generations, not millennia. The life-giving river that sustained the civilization would have shriveled into a dry bed, its waters vanishing from the landscape as the rains simply stopped. But an even more dramatic possibility exists, one written in the stars. Some researchers point to evidence of a significant cometary impact or a period of intense bombardment around this same remote timeframe. The resulting dust cloud thrown into the atmosphere could have triggered a volcanic winter, a period of global cooling and climatic chaos that would have made agriculture impossible and rendered the valley uninhabitable. Imagine the world of the builders collapsing around them. The skies darken for years, the temperatures plummet, and the familiar rhythms of nature are shattered. Their society, no matter how advanced, was fundamentally tied to the land and its climate. Faced with such an existential threat, the population would have had no choice but to abandon their city and their monuments, scattering in a desperate search for survival. This theory provides the clean break that history demands. A slow decline might leave traces, trade routes, or cultural diffusion into neighboring regions. But a sudden, overwhelming disaster erases everything at once. It severs the thread of cultural transmission completely. The knowledge of stoneworking, astronomy, and engineering dies with the last generation that knew the valley as home. The structures themselves were then slowly buried by the encroaching sands of the new desert, hidden from view and memory for thousands of years. This single event transforms the pyramids from a historical mystery into a profound memorial. They are not an anomaly but a time capsule, preserving the final moments of a world that was lost in a great and sudden reset. These silent structures demand we reconsider the entire story of human progress. We are taught a simple upward trajectory, a linear path from the Stone Age to the Silicon Age, where each generation builds upon the last. This model insists that complex technologies like advanced masonry and celestial mathematics must be the product of a long, unbroken chain of development. The Hidden Valley pyramids shatter that comforting narrative. Here, we find a level of engineering sophistication that appears fully formed, without any visible technological ancestors in the archaeological record. It is as if the knowledge simply manifested, a complete system delivered all at once. This suggests our history may not be a straight line, but a great circle, with cycles of rise and fall that have occurred long before our own recorded time. What if civilization is not a one-time invention, but a recurring phenomenon? The evidence in the valley points to a society that reached a zenith of achievement, mastering its environment with a skill we would struggle to replicate even today, only to have that knowledge vanish almost completely. This is the concept of a great forgetting, a collapse so total that it resets the human story, leaving only the most durable monuments as silent witnesses to a prior age of enlightenment. The pyramids are not primitive attempts, they are the refined products of a lost cycle. They challenge the very core of how we define advancement. Is a society measured by its digital networks or by its harmony with the cosmos and its ability to build for eternity? The silent, enduring perfection of these structures suggests that a different kind of civilization once flourished, one whose priorities and capabilities charted a different path to greatness. Their existence does not just add a chapter to our history, it implies our current chapter may be much further along than we thought, and that we are perhaps retreading a path walked long ago. The stars hold a clock that cannot be reset or deceived. This is the foundational principle of Archaeoastronomy, a discipline that merges the tools of the astronomer with the questions of the archaeologist. Where traditional archaeology must piece together timelines from scattered pottery, faded inscriptions, and layers of soil, Archaeoastronomy looks to the sky, to the immutable mechanics of our solar system. Its most powerful tool is the grand cycle of axial precession, the 26,000-year wobble of our planet that slowly changes the address of our North Star. This is not a theory but a precise mathematical certainty. By calculating the rate of this celestial drift, astronomers can work backwards with incredible accuracy. They can determine the exact year, sometimes even the specific decade, when a particular star would have risen or set in perfect alignment with a monument's central axis. A corridor aimed at the bright star Sirius, for instance, becomes a frozen moment in time. If the builders designed it so that the light of Sirius shone directly down that passage on the morning of the summer solstice, the laws of physics tell us precisely when that alignment was true. This celestial timestamp is not subject to the ambiguities of carbon dating, where old wood can skew results, or the interpretation of an ancient king's name. It provides a fixed point in the vast ocean of prehistory. When this method is applied to the Hidden Valley pyramids, the results are unequivocal. Their unique orientation points to a star that held that specific celestial position not 4,000 years ago, but more than 12,000 years in the past. The stones were positioned to capture a heavenly event that has not occurred since the end of the last ice age. This is not a suggestion or a hypothesis. It is a mathematical conclusion written in the language of orbital mechanics. The silent, unwavering testimony of the stars presents a challenge that fragmented pottery and contested inscriptions cannot easily dismiss. It forces us to ask which evidence we trust more, the imperfect artifacts left by humans, or the perfect motion of the cosmos that those humans so carefully observed. The story of the Hidden Valley has not remained confined to academic journals. It has spilled onto television screens and bookstore shelves, becoming a fixture in documentaries that often feature dramatic music and speculative narration. This media spotlight is a double-edged sword. On one hand, it generates a wave of public fascination that can translate into crucial funding for further research, allowing independent teams to purchase equipment and organize new expeditions. This global attention ensures the mystery is not forgotten, creating a groundswell of support that can pressure institutions to take a second look. Yet this very fascination can also distort the scientific process. The demand for a compelling narrative sometimes leads to a focus on the most sensational theories at the expense of the slower, more methodical work of analysis. A sober geological report on water erosion does not command the same attention as a theory involving lost continents or advanced ancient technology. This creates a feedback loop where the most speculative ideas gain the most traction, often presented alongside legitimate science without clear distinction for the viewer. The story of the pyramids is therefore being written in two parallel worlds. One exists in the quiet of the laboratory, where data is scrutinized and hypotheses are slowly tested. The other thrives in the court of public opinion, fueled by a deep human desire for mystery and the possibility of a forgotten past. This public narrative, for all its occasional excess, plays a vital role. It keeps the questions alive, ensuring that these silent stones continue to provoke wonder and debate long after the initial discovery. The final answers to this ancient riddle may not require more digging, but a new way of seeing. Emerging technologies are poised to peer through the stone itself, revealing the hidden chambers and passages that have defied discovery for so long. Muon tomography, for instance, uses cosmic rays from deep space to create three-dimensional X-ray-like images of colossal structures. As these invisible particles pass through the pyramid, they travel more easily through empty spaces than through solid rock. By mapping their paths, scientists can construct a detailed blueprint of the interior without ever lifting a tool, potentially revealing the true purpose of those enigmatic voids. Beyond the stone, the very dust holds secrets waiting for a more intimate kind of analysis. Advanced DNA sequencing of sediments within the chambers could detect the genetic ghosts of the builders themselves, identifying the plants, animals, and even the human microbiome that occupied these spaces. painting a vivid portrait of the ecosystem and people who lived here. Perhaps the most revolutionary tools lie in the quantum realm. New dating methods are being developed that rely on the subtle changes in atomic structures when minerals are exposed to natural radiation, offering a way to date the stone blocks directly, bypassing the ambiguities of carbon dating altogether. This convergence of new science offers a tangible optimism. The mystery of the hidden valley is not a dead end, but a horizon. The combined power of artificial intelligence to find patterns in vast datasets, non-invasive scanning to see through solid rock, and molecular analysis to read the biological fine print means we are on the cusp of a new era of discovery. The pyramids have kept their secrets safe for millennia, not because they are impenetrable, but because we simply lack the eyes to see. The truth is likely waiting just beyond the reach of our current tools, a puzzle whose final pieces will only fall into place when our technology finally catches up to the magnitude of the mystery itself. The Hidden Valley pyramids stand as a silent, formidable challenge to the neat and tidy chronology we have constructed for our ancient past. Their anomalous orientation, their disputed age, and their mysterious builders force us to confront a humbling possibility. The story of humanity may be far more complex and far more wonderful than the linear progression detailed in our history books. We have followed the evidence from the stars above to the stones below, from the microscopic pollen in the soil to the grand mathematics of precession. Each independent line of inquiry, from astronomy and geology to archaeology and material science, converges on a single, inescapable conclusion: our collective story is incomplete. A significant chapter is missing, its pages scattered and its narrative lost to a great forgetting. This is not a failure of scholarship, but an invitation. It is a call to keep questioning, to continue exploring with both rigorous science and open minds. The greatest discoveries often lie not in the uncharted territories, but in re-examining what we thought we already knew. These silent structures in their secluded valley remind us that the past is not a settled fact, but a living mystery, always ready to reveal new secrets to those willing to look with fresh eyes. What other profound truths are waiting just beneath the surface of our accepted reality? Share your thoughts on this enduring enigma in the comments, and join the journey as we continue to piece together the forgotten story of our world.